The auditors arrive on a Tuesday. No warning, no warm-up. Just a calendar invite from legal and a list of requests that would take a prepared team 2 weeks to fulfill. Most of the security team goes quiet, hunting for documentation they weren't sure existed, pulling reports they'd never had to format before, sending emails that started with, "Do we have a policy for?" One person wasn't scrambling, because one person had been ready for this day since the day they joined the team. That person is the paladin. Welcome back. I'm the architect. We've met the full party and watched the red and blue dynamic. Today we go deeper on the class that keeps the kingdom legally standing. The compliance officer, the GRC practitioner, the paladin. Bound by code, living by the code, and occasionally making everyone else miserable because of the code. Look at the domain map from episode 18. The paladin's home is governance, risk, and compliance, but their reach extends further. Data protection lives here too. The policies around how data is classified, retained, handled, and disposed of. That's paladin territory. And increasingly, AI security and governance. Not the technical side of securing AI systems, the governance side. Who is authorized to use AI and for what? What data can flow into the AI tool itself? What decisions can AI be permitted to make autonomously? The paladin is the person who writes those rules before someone makes an expensive mistake that requires them. Governance is how the organization decides what matters. Policies, standards, procedures, accountability structures. The security policy that says what is and isn't allowed. The standard that defines how passwords must be configured. The procedure that specifies exactly what happens when a laptop is lost. Without governance, every security decision is made up from scratch on the spot. Every individual uses their own judgment about what's acceptable. And individual judgment scales about as well as you'd expect when you have 10,000 employees and a sophisticated threat actor. The paladin writes the law, not because the law is more important than the people, but because consistent standards are the only thing that makes a security program repeatable. The kingdom that runs on individual heroism falls the day the hero isn't available. The kingdom with clear laws keeps running. Risk management is how the organization decides what to protect first. We covered the mechanics in Arc 1, likelihood times impact, risk appetite, the understanding that you cannot protect everything equally, so you must choose what gets the most protection. The paladin operationalizes this. The risk register, a living document that catalogs every identified risk, its likelihood, its impact, who owns it, and what's being done about it, and whether it has been formally accepted or is actively being remediated. That last part matters. There is a significant difference between a risk the organization has consciously decided to accept and a risk the organization simply hasn't gotten around to addressing. The paladin makes that distinction formal, on paper, with a signature. Because when that risk eventually materializes, and some of them will, the question from leadership will be, did we know about this? The risk register is the answer. Yes, we knew, and here is what we decided to do about it, and why. Compliance is how the organization proves all of the above to regulators, auditors, clients, and partners. GDPR, HIPAA, PCI DSS, SOC 2, ISO 27001, NIST CSF. Every framework, every regulation, every audit standard. The paladin knows them, not because they enjoy memorizing regulatory context, though I've met a few who do, but because non-compliance has a price tag. Fines, contract losses, reputational damage, and in some industries, the inability to operate at all. Here is where the paladin gets their reputation. Because compliance work looks like paperwork. It looks like meetings that could have been emails. It looks like policies that nobody's ever read, and questionnaires that arrive at the worst possible time. And in the middle of an active incident, the paladin is the one saying, we need to document this for the breach notification clock. Legal needs to be looped in before we notify the affected parties. We have 48 hours under GDPR, and the clock started this morning. Nobody loves hearing this, but it needs to be heard. Compliance theater versus real compliance. I'd like to take a moment to have a word on the difference. Compliance theater is the version of this work that checks boxes without building any actual security, where the policy exists because the auditor asked for one, where the training gets clicked through because it's required annually, where the penetration test report gets filed because it's contractually mandated. Real compliance is when the governance work and the security work reinforce each other, where the policy reflects how the organization actually operates, where the risk register drives actual remediation decisions, where compliance isn't the goal, it's the byproduct of running a good program. The difference is intent. A paladin who treats compliance as the mission produces a compliant organization that might still get breached. A paladin who treats compliance as the evidence of a secure organization produces a compliant organization that's actually harder to breach. The best paladins know the difference, and they push toward the second version, even when the auditor only asks for the first. The core lesson. The paladin's job is not to slow the party down. It is to make sure the castle is still standing after the inspector leaves. Security without governance is a collection of good intentions with no consistent execution. Security without risk management is effort applied in the wrong direction. Security without compliance is a program that can't survive external scrutiny. The paladin holds all three together and makes it possible for the rest of the party to focus on fighting threats instead of fighting auditors. Your quest objective. Find your organization's privacy policy or acceptable use policy. If you're an individual, find the privacy policy of a service you use daily. Read it. Actually read it. What does it say you can do with your data? What does it say the company can do with your data? What rights does it give you? Most people have never read a privacy policy in their life. The paladin has read hundreds of them, and that gap in knowledge is exactly what makes enforcement of those policies so difficult. The paladin keeps the kingdom legally standing. Next, we meet the class that keeps it physically standing. The artificer, the security engineer, the builder. The one who designs the walls, wires the alarms, and configures every piece of gear that the party relies on. Every wall was built by someone. Next time, we meet that someone. I'm the architect. We'll talk soon.